What do celebrities have to say about the legal battle between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively? And more importantly, how their statements could factor into an upcoming trial. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. The Justin Baldoni-Blake Lively legal fight has certainly drawn headlines. It has created debate online about who is right, who is to blame, who is the victim. But I will tell you, the celebrity reactions to this case are not only quite telling, but they could be important for both sides, both legally and for their careers. I'm going to get into why. But we can't forget what this is about. So Blake Lively has accused Justin Baldoni of engaging in misconduct, including sexual harassment on the set of the movie It Ends With Us, in which she co-starred alongside Baldoni. He was also the director of the film. And she said that he and his team of executives, financiers, PR, and crisis management experts, they devised a digital and media smear campaign to retaliate against her because she came forward and voiced her concerns with him. And if she should go public with her accusations, they were ready to combat her. She said this led to a wave of negative reaction on social media and articles about her. She even presented text messages that she obtained through a subpoena to support her argument that this was a coordinated retaliatory campaign against her. And I've said this before, I'll say it again. A lot of those messages could be quite bad for Justin Baldoni and the defendants in this case. But he has been adamant that these allegations are false. He says that Blake Lively weaponized false allegations against him and misrepresented what the true context of their conversations were about to leverage her control over the movie, that she wanted more control over script writing and editing, and that she eventually got her version of the film to actually be published and distributed, that she used the power and influence of her husband, actor Ryan Reynolds, and mega superstar friend Taylor Swift to pressure him, to intimidate him into accepting her revisions of a key scene in the film. And effectively what he's saying is that she boxed him out of the movie. She turned the cast against him, that she wouldn't even really let him attend the premiere of the film. He says that he and his family were forced to sit in the basement. By the way, talking evidence, there were photos of him and his family and friends, what it purported to be, in the basement of that theater. So you have competing claims, you have competing lawsuits, you have claims of sexual harassment, defamation, breach of contract, retaliation, negligence, and so forth. And by the way, I should tell you, Baldoni has also separately sued the New York Times, accusing them of engaging in defamation by allegedly coordinating the release of a bombshell report about Baldoni after Lively initially filed her first civil rights complaint against him out in California. He accuses the publication of cherry-picking messages to make him look really, really bad. But he argues they didn't provide the full context of the story or what was really going on. So he's suing that publication for $250 million, by the way. But what we want to get into right now is something else. We want to highlight, we haven't done this before, we want to highlight some of the celebrity reactions to the story. And we're not going to be able to hit every celebrity that's talked about this, but there are some key ones in particular. And what they say and who they are, again, may play a role into an upcoming trial, an upcoming legal case. So I want to start with Lively and Baldoni's co-stars in the film. For instance, we have Brandon Sklenar, who played the part of Atlas in the film. He was one of the other romantic interests of Lively's character, Lily Bloom, the other being, of course, Baldoni's character of Ryle. So after Lively filed her first civil rights complaint, remember she had to do that by law, you got to file that civil rights complaint before it actually matured into a lawsuit that she has ultimately filed against Baldoni and others. But after she first filed that civil rights complaint, and we all found out about this, remember, because it was then right after we saw the New York Times piece, we all saw this. He ended up sharing a link to that New York Times piece, more specifically, Lively's complaint. He shared it on his Instagram, and he put the message, "For the love of God, read this." And he also tagged Lively's social media handle and included a heart emoji. So it looks like he's in support of Blake Lively. Now, what is interesting about Sklenar is that he is mentioned in this litigation. By the way, I got to say, talking the back and forth legal arguments and all of these lawsuits, and we've been breaking it down ever since this case first came on the map, when I think of great lawyering, which we're seeing on both sides, when I think of that, How could I not call out our sponsor and partner, Morgan & Morgan? You talk about experts in the litigation field. This is America's largest personal injury law firm. You know why this firm has over 1,000 attorneys? Because they win a lot. In the past few months, Morgan & Morgan secured a $29 million verdict for a bicyclist in Philadelphia, a $2.7 million verdict for a car accident victim in Florida, not to mention $5.6 million for a car crash victim in Georgia after insurance offered that client $0. And even if you think your case isn't worth millions of dollars, why not just start a claim and fight for what you deserve? And Morgan & Morgan makes it truly so simple. You can start a claim from your phone in just 8 clicks. So if you're injured, you can easily start a claim at forthepeople.com/LC Sidebar. In Lively's complaint, she included as an exhibit a, quote, scenario planning document that she says was circulated amongst Baldoni and the defendants should she go public with her grievances about Baldoni. And that there was a part of that that read, again, this is what they would do, what they were going to plan to do if she came forward with her allegations. Quote, our team will collate a list of people who have publicly discussed their positive working experience with Justin. Examples include Brandon Scalanar. Now, of course, that scenario planning document doesn't really mean much right now, but it's interesting reading that they thought he would be on his side because right now it seems like he's siding with Blake Lively. Although, to be fair, this message that he posted to social media, that was back on December 23rd, 2024. A lot has come out. A lot has changed since then. I'm not saying that his opinion has changed, but just something to keep in mind. He posted this back in December. Now, I will also say that Brandon Scalanar is one of the celebrities that actually attended the premiere of the film alongside Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, while Baldoni claims he was banished to the basement of the theater. So it makes you wonder how much he may have known about what was going on before Blake Lively even filed her complaint. There is a larger issue with respect to him, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But first, we have another actor from the film It Ends With Us who has publicly supported Lively through this, and that is actress Jenny Slate, who plays the character of Alyssa. And she, too, on December 23rd, released a statement that was obtained by Today.com. And it said, as Blake Lively's castmate and friend, I voice my support as she takes action against those reported to have planned and carried out an attack on her reputation. Blake is a leader, loyal friend, and a trusted source of emotional support for me and so many who know and love her. What has been revealed about the attack on Blake is terribly dark, disturbing, and wholly threatening. I commend my friend, I admire her bravery, and I stand by her side. By the way, little side note actually, we actually heard about Jenny Slate recently because, see, if you've been following us, or at least you've been following the news on this, you remember the footage that was released, last week, the week before, from the set? It's of Baldoni and Lively slow dancing during a montage scene. The cameras were rolling. By the way, it was to be used for B-roll, meaning you just use the video of it, you don't use the audio. But the mics picked up them talking. So you hear the two actors talking, you hear Baldoni and Lively talking, and two different interpretations of that video. So Lively claims that during the filming of that scene, Baldoni broke character. He made physical advances that were completely inappropriate for the moment. She says he slowly dragged his lips from her ear and down her neck and said it smells so good, that he was caressing her with his mouth in a way that had nothing to do with their roles. He argues she was the one who actually broke character first. She was the one who mentioned her spray tan. That's why he commented on the smell. And she actually made fun of his nose. She was the one who made a comment about his physical appearance. And he also has made the allegation that she never met with the intimacy coordinator. He did, and he had to be the middle person. So anytime it looked like he was improvising, he really wasn't. He was just relaying the instructions from the intimacy coordinator. Again, but two different interpretations. Going back to Jenny Slate, though, there was this moment.
And my nose is so big.
Yes, I was hoping that we could address this. It's not too late. Just gotta shut down. We gotta call an insurance month and just deal with that. And then
Cut.
Just kidding.
No, it's true. That's why we hired Jenny Slate too. Our noses match.
Yikes. So again, the argument is that Lively was, making fun of his nose, saying he needs a nose job, and then basically says he cast Jenny Slate as his sister because they have similar noses or big noses. Not great, but big picture. There's another important reason to consider the reactions of these cast members like Brandon Scalanar or Jenny Slate. Why? because they could play pivotal witnesses in an upcoming trial. For instance, in Lively's complaint, she writes, Miss Lively was forced to address concerns about Mr. Baldoni and Mr. Heath's misconduct with them directly. By the way, that's about Jamie Heath, one of the heads of Wayfair. It's the production company that Baldoni was a part of, helped produce this movie. And Lively continues, and began doing so months before filming began. The concerns she raised were not only for herself, but for the other female cast and crew, some of whom had also spoken up. So if that's true, that there were other cast members who had issues with Baldoni or witnessed what Lively had described, that is key. That is important. It doesn't just become a he said, she said. This becomes much larger. However, perhaps Baldoni may actually use the cast and crew members to support his argument. Why do I say that? Because in response to the claim that he called Lively sexy, right? How do you call her sexy? That's sexual harassment. He says Blake Lively was the one who introduced that term, because in his complaint it reads, Lively herself set the tone for personal discussions on set, including what language was acceptable. For example, on one occasion while filming a restaurant scene, Lively sat on the floor in painfully expensive shoes while discussing with a group of male cast and crew how sexy her shoes were. Lively had no issue using the word sexy herself, but apparently took note both times Baldoni said the word in her presence. And there's a multitude of issues for why the cast and crew might come into play here, but there's also another issue I want to highlight. You see, one of the issues in this case is the claims from Baldoni that he isn't responsible for all of the negative press of Blake Lively and this coordinated smear campaign against her, that Lively derailed her own career by marketing the film in a way that was tone deaf. This is a film about domestic violence, but she decided to promote it in a more lighthearted fashion. Like there was a post that read, grab your friends, wear your florals. Whereas Baldoni would promote the film highlighting the serious subject matter. Now, Lively's made the argument, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I was just following the agreed upon marketing plan for this movie. And guess what? Seems like she might be suggesting that the cast can back her up on that, because her complaint reads, leading up to and in connection with the release of the film during the summer of 2024, Miss Lively and fellow cast members promoted the film in accordance with the marketing plan created and delivered by the film's distributor Sony, which is summarized in the talking points attached here to as Exhibit C. Miss Lively and other cast members were under a contractual obligation to render promotional services in accordance with the marketing plan. The marketing plan directed the cast to focus on Lily's strength and resilience as opposed to describing the film as a story about domestic violence, and to avoid talking about this film that makes it feel sad or heavy. It's a story of hope. So, maybe stars like Brandon Skelenar or Jenny Slate, they will say that. Okay, now going back to celebrity reactions. Moving the cast to the side, we have Colleen Hoover. So she is the author of the novel It Ends With Us, upon which the film is based. And after Lively came forward with her complaint, Hoover posted on her Instagram stories the following about Lively. You have been nothing but honest, kind, supportive, and patient since the day we met. Thank you for being exactly the human that you are. She continued, never change, never wilt. And that is alongside a picture of her and Blake Lively hugging. And in the caption, she wrote, I wanted to show support, but I had anxiety thinking of putting my post about Blake in my feed and sending myself into a mental spiral from the inevitable comments. But this statement from these women and Blake's ability to refuse to sit down and be buried has been nothing short of inspiring. She continued, seeing these three women stand up for their friend when they know good and well they're going to be ripped apart by the people who choose to not accept or read receipts is inspiring. So what she's referring to seems to be the joint statement that was put out on Instagram from Lively's former co-stars. And this is from the film Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. So we're talking about co-stars America Ferrera, Amber Tamblyn, and Alexis Bledel. And that statement read, as Blake's friends and sisters for over 20 years, we stand with her in solidarity as she fights back against the reported campaign waged to destroy her reputation. Throughout the filming of It Ends With Us, we saw her summon the courage to ask for a safe workplace for herself and colleagues on set, and we are appalled to read the evidence of a premeditated and vindictive effort that ensured to discredit her voice. Most upsetting is the unabashed exploitation of domestic violence survivor stories to silence a woman who asked for safety. The hypocrisy is astounding. And the statement continued, "We are struck by the reality that even if a woman is as strong, celebrated, and resourced as our friend Blake, she can face forceful retaliation for daring to ask for a safe working environment. We are inspired by our sister's courage to stand up for herself and others." By the way, as we go through some of these celebrity reactions, it is not entirely clear if those who worked with Lively or even Baldoni in the past on other films, whether they'll be called as witnesses. It's one thing if they were told by Blake Lively or Justin Baldoni about what was going on that set. That's one thing. But what the actors were generally like to work with, maybe that could be called upon. Maybe. I don't know if it's really relevant. Although I will say, Baldoni did highlight in his complaint that Lively had a reputation of being difficult to work with, so maybe that issue would make its way into a trial, and we would see some of these stars actually have to be witnesses. One thing I do want to mention, though, about author Colleen Hoover, though, is, again, Baldoni's team allegedly had her name on that planning scenario document, too, as somebody who would support him. But I will also say, and I didn't mention this before, during the premiere of It Ends With Us, there were articles and social media posts about how Hoover, Lively, and other cast members didn't follow Baldoni on Instagram, even though he apparently followed them. So that is an interesting aspect. Could she play a witness at this trial? What did they know before the complaint? What were they told before the complaint was filed? If they really weren't following him on Instagram, that could be a red flag. So again, she could play a witness at this trial, potentially in support of Lively's account. However, something else I want to mention about this, Baldoni actually mentions Hoover in a key way in his lawsuit as well. He writes how his production company, Wayfarer, had acquired the film rights to It Ends With Us back in 2016. And on page 11 of his lawsuit, it reads, "When It Ends With Us author Colleen Hoover watched 5 Feet Apart in theaters," that's a movie that was directed by Baldoni, "she told Baldoni, 'You are the right person to make this movie.'" Referring, of course, to It Ends With Us. Baldoni's early emails to Hoover demonstrate his commitment to doing so in the manner he envisioned would be most impactful. In fact, it was Hoover who suggested Baldoni portray Ryle. So she supported him at one point to make a film about the sensitive nature of domestic violence. Now, maybe look at him a little bit differently. By the way, talking about other people that have worked with Blake Lively who have responded to this legal drama, we have Italian actor Michele Morrone, who's reportedly working with Lively on an upcoming sequel to A Simple Favor. He posted to Instagram in December.
So it's usually not my thing to make those kind of videos, but I think it's time to stand up for a person that I really love. And this person is Blake Lively. And I'm really tired to see those kind of cruel and bad comment about her without knowing the situation. So that's why I want to link right here an article, the New York Times, just to make you understand before commenting what happened.
And he concluded his video by saying, "Blake, I love you so much. Keep it up. And we're going to see each other very soon." And then you also have A Simple Favor director Paul Feig also supporting Lively on X, writing in part, "I've now made 2 movies with Blake, and all I can say is she's one of the most professional, creative, collaborative, talented, and kind people I've ever worked with. She truly did not deserve any of this smear campaign against her." By the way, I actually think it's important for a different reason. The key there is professional, that he says that, because an argument could be made from her side that if you watch the footage that was released of her and Baldoni during that montage scene, she was hiding her discomfort. She was the consummate professional who tried to just move on with the scene, do her job. And by the way, that goes to another idea. The idea of how come she kept moving forward with a film that was co-starred and directed by Baldoni if he was engaging in misconduct on set? She could have him fired, she could move on, she could quit. Again, professional. If she is a professional, she put the job above herself. Now, of course, Baldoni will argue that none of this is true, that he didn't do anything wrong, that she tried to take control over the film. And I will also say, I wonder if there's an argument put forward by his team that if you have somebody as A-list as Blake Lively and who has powerful people in her camp, if she really was being harassed on set, couldn't she have just gotten Baldoni fired, walked off the set? Or again, was she just a professional? Or did nothing like this happen? Confusing, we don't know. What is confusing about this, though, is she presented that 30-point list of demands that Baldoni and Wayfarer, the production company, needed to abide by should she return after the writer's strike. Things like no more showing nude photos or videos to Blake Lively, and Baldoni and team agreed to it. Now, he says, I didn't agree with the allegations or the context, but look, I acquiesced, I gave in, I just wanted to continue the movie. Again, I felt intimidated by Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift, but again, complicated. Now, I also have to call out another interesting reaction. So this one is from Amber Heard. Now, you will recall that she was embroiled in an extremely high-profile civil trial with her ex-husband Johnny Depp. Claims of domestic violence were leveled by both of them towards each other. It was a very infamous defamation trial, and in the end, you have to say the jury sided with him over her, but she has since come out and told NBC News, social media is the absolute personification of the classic saying, a lie travels halfway around the world before truth can get its boots on. I saw this firsthand and up close. It's as horrifying as it is destructive. And what's interesting about that is she made similar claims that there was a smear campaign directed against her too. Actually, by the way, Baldoni apparently retained the same crisis management expert, Melissa Nathan, that Depp had used in his battle against Heard. And Melissa Nathan is a defendant in this Baldoni Lively litigation, by the way. Now, I have to be clear about something. Not all of the public sentiment out there is pro-Blake Lively. In fact, if you go online and you look at comments, there are a lot of people who are pro-Justin Baldoni. But talking about, celebrity figures, you do have controversial political commentator Candace Owens, because after the complaint came out from Blake Lively and Baldoni was dropped by his talent agency, he was stripped of his Vital Voices Award. That's an award that goes to men who are recognized for the support of women. Owens posted on X, quote, "Hear me out. What if rather than believing women or men, we waited for more facts and allowed Justin Baldoni to have his day in court before stripping him of awards?" You also had Baldoni's mother, Sharon Baldoni. She posted on Instagram for the actor's 41st birthday last week, writing, "Happy birthday, Justin," remembering a wonderful moment after the final ending of Jane the Virgin, because she posted this alongside a photo of her and him. A moment where joy and love permeated the set, where friendships and family were born and kindness and integrity permeated the hearts of all the actors and crew, where sadness only entered because it was the final scene of a wonderful journey and the beginning of the rest of our lives. A happy, loving, and generous memory with hearts exploding with possibilities. Life has its moments and also its surprises. As you keep your integrity through it all, justice and truth will shine today and into eternity. I love you more than you will ever know. Happy birthday, my beautiful boy. May God continue to bless you in truth. Now, how do you look at that? Well, some could say that justice and truth line is directly in reference to the ongoing Blake Lively battle. We do not know for sure, but again, something you might be thinking. And then we have Justin Baldoni's wife, also appears to be in full support of her husband, Emily Baldoni, posting on Instagram, "Happy birthday, my love, celebrating the man, husband, and father that you are. I choose you again and again." And this alongside a picture of the two of them kissing with their children by their side. Now, we aren't going to get into, as I said, every reaction that's out there, but it is interesting to see what has come out so far and what may change or develop as this case changes and develops. And I will say this, the reaction, whether it's from Hollywood stars or the public, is important. I've said it before, I will say it again. I think a fair argument for why Lively filed her complaint and why Baldoni is fighting back, and his lawyer, Brian Friedman, has been making public comments and has released footage and so forth, is to reverse the public narratives here, right? To win over public sentiment, to rehabilitate their careers. The fight in the court of public opinion is just as important, if not more important, than the legal fight for these two actors, for these two stars. Lively was facing that wave of criticism and negative press. Now she's saying, let me tell you what's going on. Let me tell you, I'm the victim in all of this. Baldoni has been ostracized. He's been cast as a villain of women. He says, not so fast. Let me show you the text. Let me show you the footage to show you there is more context here. I'm the victim. So the reaction that they're getting from Hollywood, the reaction that they're getting from the public online is very, very important for their careers and their livelihoods. Now, we have a hearing scheduled in this case out in New York next week. We're going to have one of our reporters in the courtroom. There are going to be no cameras in there. This is a federal case. Law&Crime, though, is going to be covering it in real time. We're going to go live on our YouTube page. And this trial, by the way, talking about a trial, currently set by a judge for March 9th, 2026. Long time away. can even be pushed out longer than that. Litigation can sometimes be pushed out much longer than that. But by the way, again, talking Depp and Heard, as I mentioned before, no cameras in this courtroom, so it's a big problem with federal courts. I could talk about it all the time, notorious for no cameras. So this will play out much differently than Depp versus Heard. But we will cover this in the best way we can. But that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.